Now to our reporters in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, who spent the weekend with communities hit by Alfred. Brisbane has recorded its wettest day in more than half a century, and there are still risks of major flooding in Queensland, with rivers rising in Ipswich, with some residents told to be ready to leave their homes. Tom Hartley reports.
First to Premier David Christopher-Borley. What do we need to know? What can you share with us?
Well, today the risk is obviously rainfall leading to flooding.
This is our house. That's the neighbour's house. That's our lawn, which is just underwater. And this here is our nature strip out the back, which is now part of Breakfast Creek.
Hurston resident Cedric Chu and his family's gone through flood after flood in their 100-year-old home. Only 2 weeks ago, through a city council scheme, they raised the timber cottage 2 stories.
This would have been our living area downstairs to about there, I reckon.
Geez, you must be grateful that you got this thing up
That was
in the nick of time.
Very timely, so our builders were fantastic.
Like many people in the southeast, when Alfred stalled off the coast, Cedric hoped just maybe he and his neighbours would be in the clear.
That's Downey Park. It wasn't until Sunday, I think the rains really started to pick up. Sunday, very early hours in the morning Sunday, so that's when we thought, okay, it's going to flood. It was just a matter of how much flooding. There was definitely some ups and downs with the emotions of that, so yeah.
More down than up, a few doors down. So this place belongs to one of Cedric's neighbours. They don't want to be filmed, but they've said we can come through and have a look. They had water up about, I don't know, waist high or so. Oh no. It's just full of mud. When Sunday arrived, it ended hopes that ex-Cyclone Alfred was going to be a fizzer. Jeez. I mean, this area is known to flood a lot and really easily, but it's just incredible to see how quickly the water's come up and how much is over that road. The lows sat over the southeast, dumping hundreds of millimetres of rainfall in less than 24 hours.
Last night was pretty dramatic.
Everyone was out and happy, and then all of a sudden the winds just picked up.
Overnight there, we got hit pretty badly. Majority of the roads are blocked, and as you can see, it's bucketing down outside. If it's unsafe to stay out there, come back in.
SES volunteers, these everyday people taking time away from work and their families, have been run off their feet. Just in the past day, they've received more than 3,700 calls for help, the largest volume in its history.
It's quite an emotional roller coaster when you're dealing with people to see their possessions destroyed, especially in a flooded situation. It's just, their possessions are just literally putrefied, and they want to keep some of it still. And it's just to see them go through that. It's quite devastating.
One of the biggest obstacles for them and many other emergency crews are the countless number of cut roads.
It's big, bigger than Ben Hur, mate.
Then there are those communities off the coast, the Bay Islands that felt Alfred's brunt before the mainland.
Well, let's just say it's been a long night. Unfortunately, we have flooding. Well, my husband tried to stop it, and it's just, that's an indication, and it's been doing this. This is actually quite calm right now, but we're absolutely inundated with water.
Before Lamb Island's RFS could clear the debris, the storm's aftermath set in.
This is definitely much worse than the actual cyclone.
We've got no food left. We've got protein powder
can't get off the island.
And a bath full of water. We can't even drive down the street.
So many residents waiting and suspecting the clean-up will be as slow going as the cyclone. What's it like looking back at this now and like taking it all in now you've come back today?
The first flood leaves you with a PTSD. You really feel it. You know, across 35 years we've had 3 floods in our place. I know the neighbours had quite a few more because they're a slightly lower ground actually, and each time I sort of say to myself, oh, I'm going to move. But then once the sun's out, you know, it's sort of, well, and being allowed to raise your house actually makes it more sustainable, and there's a little bit more confidence that next time we can just sit and just watch the weather, I think.
In New South Wales, the risk of flooding also remains across the Northern Rivers region. Mike Lorigan is in Lismore.
The remnants of ex-tropical Cyclone Alfred are best seen from above. Grey skies and heavy rainfall have painted the landscape across the Northern Rivers. Thousands remain without power. Several flood warnings are still in place.
Although the ex-tropical Cyclone Alfred will continue to weaken as it moves further inland, communities need to remain vigilant.
But the colour is returning quickly to the face of Lismore. Floodwaters are receding here after the Wilsons River peaked at 9.31 metres on Saturday afternoon.
Luckily, at the end of the day, the levee bank didn't come over, the river didn't break its banks, and certainly the information we're getting from the BOM initially, which led us to our decision, you know, to make evacuation orders and things like that, didn't eventuate. So we're very pleased with that.
OK, we are now in recovery mode.
Correct.
Superintendent Scott Tanner has been appointed Recovery Coordinator. For the first time, he's revealed the confronting modelling that underpinned the emergency response.
On all the information that we had from the BOM and from the SES, the indications were that we were going to get a flood in excess of 13 metres. So if that had come, we certainly wouldn't be talking and standing here at the moment.
Superintendent Tanner says unlike the 2022 flood, the community had time on its side. The New South Wales Government and SES announced evacuation orders late Thursday. By Friday, Lismore had largely emptied.
We've got a bit of time. It's not like 22. 22 was different. 22 was biblical, eh? It was pretty crazy.
So and I hope what we've demonstrated through this, you know, preparation and planning, that the community can have faith and confidence in their emergency services and partner agencies.
In 2022, an independent inquiry into the floods made several findings and recommendations. One of those came to flood rescue. It found the SES rescue system was overwhelmed and did not have the operational ability to coordinate multiple flood rescues. In its absence, an army of tinnies were deployed by locals. One of them was Vincent Mary Church. This street is sort of where that image was taken of you in the boat. And these are those properties behind you.
The water height on those houses, as you probably know from that image, is not far under those gutters.
I mean, how many people did you rescue?
Oh, somewhere between 30 and 50. I really wasn't keeping count.
Vincent, in the lead up to this, were you prepared to do the same again?
100%, yeah. I was, but didn't want to. And I told a lot of people I'm not doing that again. Please don't ring me because I'm not doing that again. But yeah, I was, and I had my boat ready.
We had thousands of resources, had 2,500 SES volunteers. You know, we had over 50 police rescue personnel. We had the ADF that came in early, and that was one of the big calls that we had in 2022. But reflecting back on 2022, you know, we had 2,500 rescues performed in a day.
The 2022 inquiry also found the design of the current rain and river gauge network wasn't fit for purpose. Some of those upstream from Lismore were left in the dark.
There were some really major life-threatening and horrible experiences for people who also had their houses and their farms and their cattle and their tractors and all of these things destroyed.
You're describing there's a lot at stake if you don't have the information.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering if you were able to get data.
Communities like Annie Kia's in the upper catchment areas have taken data collection into their own hands.
8:30 a.m, 9th of the 3rd, 25.
They're called Sentinels, and from remote, isolated areas using CB radio, they have relayed the latest measurements downstream to residents and the SES.
The wonderful people who are our Sentinels, who have really put themselves out through very difficult conditions to make these rain observations at frequent intervals, but have found a way to get the data to us. Like, it's a miracle. Like, every time some of this data comes through, I think, oh my God, we got that.
Flooding is part of the life cycle here in this patch of the country. Here in Lismore, businesses are back trading, people are returning to the CBD and to their homes. But all of this water is headed downstream to communities that still face flooding emergencies and isolation.
Lismore has dodged a bullet, but you've got just under 10 metres of water behind that wall. It's got to go somewhere.
While the focus is on recovery, some of Lismore's most vulnerable residents don't know where to begin.
I came here and I climbed through the window to get into my caravan because at that point the water was quite high and my stuff was floating down that way. At that point it became real and all my stuff didn't matter anymore. I thought, okay, there's a chance that my life could be in danger.
Near the banks of the Wilsons River, the floodwater went right through Laura Lambert's temporary home. Laura lives here with her 2 dogs.
I can't live here anymore. What hasn't been washed down that way, it's all ruined. I don't know. I really don't know what the future's going to hold. And it's not just me. There's a lot of other people in the Northern Rivers, but especially in the Lismore area. I don't know, we need help. Like, we really, really need help. Yeah, we're struggling.
For the most up-to-date information in your area, tune into your local ABC radio station or visit abc.net.au/emergency. The New South Wales Premier Chris Minns joined me earlier. We spoke before the press conference by New South Wales Police and the AFP, which confirmed that a caravan discovered in January filled with explosives was part of a fake terror plot. Premier, welcome to 7:30.
Thanks, Sarah.
What are the ongoing risks to people in New South Wales?
Still rainfall. We've got swollen rivers, particularly the Clarence and the Tweed. They've still got a lot of water in them. They're flowing down from different tributaries and the hills in the hinterland behind the coast. And the SCS and the Bureau are looking at what the weather will do in the next 24 hours. But conditions are easing around Lismore, which is probably our most lowest lying and certainly an area that has the most anxiety attached to it. And there's good news coming out of that. All of the evacuation warnings have been lifted in that community, which is a real relief given the levee didn't break, and business hopefully will get back to normal as soon as possible.
I understand that there are more than 1,800 people still isolated due to the flooding. What happens to them?
Yeah, I mean, we're working very hard to get communities back into their homes as soon as possible, but everyone's trying to learn the lesson from 2022, so there's obviously a degree of caution in relation to those communities, but evacuation centres for those areas will continue to operate. We'll make sure that people have got a roof over their heads and they can withstand the next period of time. Hopefully the floodwaters start to drain and we can return all people to their houses and their communities as soon as possible, bearing in mind there's about 9,000 businesses and households in northern New South Wales still without power, but that's from a peak of about 45,000 2 days ago.
Now, the Prime Minister says he'll give consideration to any measures required, is the language he used, if insurers don't do the right thing. The Queensland Premier said something similar. What's your message to the insurance companies?
Look, in the first instance, people have to understand that if you're insured in the Northern Rivers, you're already paying a premium. Insurers, charge like a wounded bull for areas that they perceive to be flood affected or part of a tropical weather systems. And if you're paying through the nose for your insurance already, when disaster strikes, you expect to be covered, and we expect a prompt, almost immediate claim turnover by insurance companies in the days ahead. I haven't heard anything to the contrary, but I think the Prime Minister's right to keep a strong eye on this, because we don't want to see anyone left in the cold, particularly after paying so much more than, say, your average or typical insurance holder in New South Wales because of where you live.
You say charge like a wounded bull. Are you suggesting that insurance companies are overcharging in the Northern Rivers?
Well, look, I mean, they have to do it based on assessment. It's a competitive industry, but they just put a premium. If you're in an area that's prone to floods, or as a result of the tropical weather, there's more natural weather events. So given that your premiums are higher than they ordinarily would be in another part of the state, the least the insurance companies can do is promptly pay a claim when it's filed.
Now, there's just on another topic, we understand there's been a development in the investigation of the explosives that were discovered in a caravan in Dural. Can you update us on that?
I'm afraid I can't. New South Wales Police and the AFP will speak about it soon, but I'm not going to comment before the officials who are involved in that investigation can give a full report.
Have we learned any more about the involvement of crime or organised crime in paying people to commit some of these attacks in Australia?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to comment before New South Wales Police. This is a major investigation. There has been an update to it, which is encouraging, but I'm going to let my officials talk to the public about the next steps before I comment.
Premier, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, Sarah.